We're on live now. Great. Okay. So very good morning to everyone. Welcome to the HAPA TV platform. This is the first ever show for HAPA TV to be doing this really, truly amazing platform that we have created, where we want to share inspiring stories and also very inspiring journey of all our entrepreneurs out there for hospitality, F&B, tourism. And during this tough time and this very challenging time, I think we all need to learn from each other, as what Lyn has said, over our short conversation earlier. There's no textbooks, basically. So this is going to be a real life, very raw, kind of a chit-chat, very casual. And, we get to listen in to all the wonderful stories. And today is our very first day for HAPA TV. And our very first guest is none other than Lyn Siew. So, welcome, Lyn. Welcome. Let me do a little bit of an introduction about who Lyn is.
Good morning, JENN.
Lyn is an F&B entrepreneur. She's also a food blogger. She's lived in overseas, I think, for the last 15 years. And she came back to Malaysia finally in 2015 and went on this really daring step and adventure in starting what we call a very modern Chinese cuisine concept restaurant, which is Ruyi and Lyn. And then she opened another one, U in Gardens, and Monte Carlo, which is a Western restaurant at BSC. And she has many other new restaurants coming up the pipeline. And I think I've known Lyn for more than 5 years now.
Yeah, since I moved back to KL, I remember you.
She's very bubbly, very energetic, right? She's always laughing, smiling, and I always enjoy catching up for coffee with her at BSC. So let us now welcome Lyn and let us start hearing from her. So Lyn, good morning. Thank you so much for making time to join us on this show at HAPA TV.
Good morning, JENN. Thanks for having me on your first episode. I'm so excited to be here.
Right. So can you share with us, how did you end up being an F&B entrepreneur? Was that actually like an accidental thing, or is because of family influence?
To be honest, I never planned to be one. I tried to avoid being one. But, it runs in the genes. I mean, my grandparents were in the Chinese restaurant industry. And then my parents are also in the Chinese restaurant industry. But then I tried to run away from it. So I grew up in restaurants. And then the moment I got abroad, I decided to study, film studies, art history, whatever that's not food related, because I felt like, it was a tough industry to be in. And, I was young. I wanted to try different things. But, fate brought me back to KL. And then I decided to learn from my dad, because, he's obviously one of the pioneers. And I think it's a good opportunity to, to do something and to learn from the best. And that's how I accidentally got into it. I never planned for it. It was just like organic,
Okay, so you're one of those that we classify under accidental entrepreneur.
Yeah, I like the way you put it, accidental.
I have a cousin sister, and she called herself accidental florist. She wasn't even planning to be one, but somehow fate brought her into it, and I said, oh, that's actually very cool, right?
Yeah.
So you started Ruyi and Lyn, and people. It's a very, a lot of people have said, not a lot, but there's some people who said, it's that kind of concept won't work. It's not a typical Chinese place. It's dark, not Chinese people don't like dark places. And you have so many of these comments, right? That was not really very encouraging and positive. So what do you have to say about that? Are you one of those persons that usually go against all odds to do things?
I think so. I mean, to be honest, if you want to do a business, I feel that, you need to stand out, you need to do different things. And even though people may doubt you at the beginning, I think as long as you make an impression, that it's going to fall into place quite naturally. So yeah, I got a lot of comments about the place being really dark. Like Ruyi was built on a kind of club /restaurant, multi-conceptual, base. At the same time, like we want to keep the tradition of Chinese cooking. So we want to make it relevant to the young people. Back then I was still young, like 5 years ago. Used to make clubs, yeah. So it has to be trendy. I mean, I always believe that if you want to continue a legacy, you have to make it relevant. You have to make it attractive to the next generation. And one way of doing it is to, make it trendy and sexy. So I believe that even if it was against all odds, we managed to, stand out. And we had a lot of people telling me that, Lyn, this is never going to work because it's so unconventional. The whole concept is not like a normal Chinese restaurant. Yeah. So 5 years on, we're still around. That's all I can say.
Yeah. And you have a great chef too as well, right? Chef James.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Chef James is our executive chef. He's got a very global resume. And he's also a Malaysian, so we, it's kind of an all Malaysian team, and we just want to bring out the best, really.
Right. Good, great, that's great. So, okay, so we've been through 3-4 months of this really challenging time of this COVID-19. Maybe you'd like to share with us how has COVID-19 impacted your restaurants, and what do you think in general? How has it impacted the F&B industry?
Wow, Jen, I think this topic, and I think a lot of people will resonate. We're one of the hardest hit industries, the whole hospitality industry, restaurants in particular, because we need people, we need traffic. And obviously when this whole coronavirus kicked in, we pretty much had to close overnight. I mean, we had to suspend our outlets overnight. Everybody, imagine Malaysia has so many restaurants. The moment the government announces that, we're going into a full lockdown, can you imagine the shock of all of us, not just the management, but the team, the whole country is going through. And we literally had to turn things around overnight. I mean, how long is the lockdown? We don't know. At least it's for a month. And, to be honest, we've seen how the other countries were doing it. For example, Australia, China. So we did have a bit of warning before we went into the lockdown. But to be very honest, when it happened in Malaysia, we had to scramble. We had to scramble because we knew that we're not going to be in business operations for the next month. I mean, where are our money coming in? The revenues will never be the same. So,
how was it on the 18th of March? How was that? Or rather 17th March or 16th March, right? What was going on? You as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, and you had a team, you had things going on, you didn't have enough time to prepare. So what actually happened? What went on there?
Wow. Okay. On my calendar, on my diary, Jen, I actually kept a diary. Okay. So the 16th of March till the 18th of March, I named it D-Day. Okay. It's almost like an Armageddon, I'm so glad that is over. So on the 16th of March, that was when our Prime Minister announced that, the whole country is going into a lockdown. So literally he announced it at 10 p.m. at night. So that means that if we're going into lockdown on the 18th, we only have the 17th to pack up all our restaurants, and we have 13 outlets.
Do you think that really, was it really unfair to be given such short notice?
Yeah, I wish we had longer notice. I wish we had over the weekend, but of course, given the severity of the virus, we just had to respect whatever policies that, was passed on. So the best we can do is, try and do as much as we can within 12 hours. In fact, I didn't even sleep that night because, we just had to prep for closure, which is something we've never done because we never close our restaurants. So I think we just had no choice but to do the necessary and to relay the information to the team. It's a bit like, I still remember, Jen, when on the 17th, when I did my final briefing to the whole team at Ruyi, I remember standing there and looking at everyone and saying, guys, this is beyond what we can control. And this is beyond what the world can control. So I hope that, you will stand together with us to get through this period. So that moment you make an announcement like that is usually almost like an apocalypse.
Yeah. Must be, everyone would have been really stagnant and shocked and freeze and, all the feelings of anxiety and uncertainty
Oh, yeah.
coming in, right? I'm sure.
I think so. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, how do you deal with the staff? I mean, there were so many issues about how the business has been impacted with zero income. People were not ready to pivot, and then employees had to be paid, and there were so many issues of things with the landlords and all this. So
I think
So what did you go through? What did you go through?
Yeah, I think, Jen, when we go through hard times, that's when you see the best of humanity. And I'm going to be very honest, no matter how hard it was to relay that message, I'm so grateful that we had the maturity of the team. So that means that, this is when you can actually see all members of the team, regardless of what position they're in, really rallying to support each other. And I've never seen so much of humanity. I mean, that is possibly one of the nice things that I've experienced throughout this MCO, is really seeing how people, without being told what to do, would take the initiative to get through a difficult period of time. So in a way, it made my job a lot easier in terms of navigating, through these uncertain times. It's just the whole teamwork. I mean, it just came out so naturally. And I think, I'm very grateful for that. But of course, I mean, it's not the best of circumstances. I mean, I would never want to take my team through these, difficult periods of time where we had to close. It makes me feel like I want to protect them more.
Right. Did you have to lay off staff though? Did you have to do any retrenchment?
No, we don't. So we actually paid everyone in full for the first couple of months, and that is the least we can do. I mean, we whatever we do, we protect our own people first, and of course, thereafter it would be our business. So as management, I think that is our responsibility, and that is really what we can do.
Right. So did you have any difficulty with some staff, some employees? Were you going through some issues, and any particular difficult issues at all? Were you facing them?
I think, apart from, some team members going through some self-doubt, I think the whole mental health aspect of this whole situation it's important because, I think we're going through a period of time where everybody's psychological limits are being tested. Because, we've never been through this before, and unfortunately, no one has the answer of when this is going to end and where this is going to lead us to. So I think, we had a couple of team members who actually approached us and said, look, I don't think I can work. I need a sabbatical, or can you give me the mental support or the emotional support? And, sometimes they're on Facebook and then they will post up something where, you can tell they're not going through a good time. And I suppose as management, this is our time to really reach out. And even within our human resource department, we actually have a scheme called Oriental Cares. So Oriental is the name of the company. And, we've elected a panel of counselors, of which I'm one of them,
Okay.
Where we are reachable 24/7. You can call us, WhatsApp us, and just be transparent. And, it helps. It helps. I think giving strength to other people helps, even for me personally, I'm not 100% happy all the time because I hate this situation. It's not a great situation to be in,
Right. Right. So, and, we're talking about the new norm, right? Everyone talks about the new norm. But personally, I don't know what actually is the new norm, because things are still shifting, things are changing. Yeah. Consumer behavior is changing. So what defines the new norm, and how does the F&B industry work along these new norms that is constantly changing?
I refuse to call this a new norm, because a norm should be a norm. There shouldn't be a new norm. I've always been very hard-headed towards it because, you see, yeah, certain things have to be changed, but for F&B, especially in the hospitality industry, and I remember we spoke about this before, hospitality should always be the same in the sense that human nature needs to eat. Human nature is, we are social creatures, and the whole experience of dining should not change because the whole point of eating together is to really spend time with the people we love. I don't believe in all of us being confined in different, rooms, eating alone and having a Zoom dining experience or a Zoom eating experience. I mean, to me, it defeats the purpose of humanity, and hospitality should not go that way. And as Chinese restaurant operators, I also believe that as much as we can automate certain things, we cannot automate the service. We cannot automate the service aspect. We cannot automate the cooking aspect, because that's not what we are. We want to deliver quality cuisine. We don't want to deliver takeaways or mass or fast food, because that's not what Chinese cuisine is all about. So I really believe that this new norm that anybody is talking about is just a phase, because eventually when we get through this period, and I think even Karthik is online. He's one of the yeah, we just did a thumbs up, Even then, for any restaurant owner, we're going to go back to normal. Yeah. We're going to go back to normal because we can't change it. Yeah.
So you think this social distancing dining is not something that will be here for permanently, forever? It's gonna.
No way.
Yeah.
No way. I'm so positive it's going to change, as in, like, we will definitely get banqueting back. Weddings, for example, we do a lot of wedding banquets. I don't believe a wedding should only be confined to 20 persons, because what's the point of getting married when you only have your in-laws with you? Let's be frank. You got to have your friends, So I think this can't go on. I'm going to be very honest. Yeah.
So how do you then work along the fact that now there's confined in terms of the number of packs that they allow, up to 20 packs, right? So how do you now then work along or cater to the wedding and the banquet events, or you've just sort of shelved that and said forget it because it's not going to work with 20 packs?
Well, we always offer options to all our customers or clients. So there are certain clients who are okay with having a small reception. That's great, because I always believe that if you want to get married, do it soon. You never know what tomorrow brings, So even if it's 20 persons, we can always do like a really nice dinner with, maybe your close friends or families. You can break it up into different sessions, maybe. The more days you can celebrate, the better. But of course, I think essentially to have a beautiful wedding, you should have everybody with you on one night. So there are pros and cons, but we can always be flexible, and we can always respect the law. So we can always design or to plan a celebration regardless.
I think at the end of the day, as long as everyone still believes in the industry and still have that drive to make things happen, there will be just a short-term period of now and where things are a little bit where things are so uncertain. So it's quite difficult for people to sort of put in the long-term plans, But as long as we all believe in it and build the whole industry together, I think there's so much potential, so much potential for us to grow. But what I really like to talk about now is you.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, and it must have been tough on you. I mean, for me as an entrepreneur, it was tough on me as well. I think we all go through the same emotional stress and whatnot that comes with it, right? So, what about you? Did you get into depression? Was it did you have dark moments where you literally want to just throw in the towel? What was actually happening to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting question because, I definitely had my dark moments. In fact, more than light moments. I think it's the whole uncertainty of the situation, and on top of that, not being able to work at your fullest capacity. And then you're locked at home with your parents. It's tough. Nobody has an answer. There's no cure to the virus. I think there are times where I kind of question my existence. And let's be honest, all of us did. I mean, even probably like the top CEOs in the world, this is actually the most lonely period because you're just trying to survive. You're stretching your mental capacity because no amount of education, no amount of training or professional training is going to prepare for you for this period of your life. I mean, there's no answer. So I think in terms for me personally, I just had a lot of questions in my head, like, why am I doing this? Why am I'm such a lousy restaurateur. I'm such a lousy entrepreneur. I don't even know what's happening. We get dark times like that. But at the end of the day, it just takes me maybe 7 days to kind of realize that, look, this is just a phase. I've survived 7 days. I'm still around. The business is still around. So it's going to pass. So eventually, it's all about just taking one day at a time, try and look after yourself, and then it will pass. It has to pass at some point. So that's how I kind of navigated around it. But trust me, I did have my dark periods. I do even want to wake up sometimes.
Yeah, so how did you manage that? How did you, because I think it was about 3 months. It's a long time, to be in these dark moments and to be, under so much of stress. So what were you doing to get yourself out of these dark moments every day?
I was running around my garden a lot. I was literally running in circles.
Right.
Yeah, so I had to sweat it out, Jen. I cannot emphasize enough on fitness because being locked in is one thing, but you need to be healthy. You need to prioritize your physical health. So it was kind of just exercising, and I was reading a lot as well. I did a lot of things that I could not do usually, like reading, because usually when you're working, you're so busy. But these are actually the best times to kind of pick up a book, wallow in that, that moments of reading and learning new things. So I did a lot of reading on self-healing. I did some meditation as well. I've never been so spiritual all my life. But, yeah. So I did that to conserve my sanity.
And do that, right? I mean, I think a lot. I call it the quicksand moment. Where when people get sucked into these really dark moments and this very, very dark energy, I call it. It's so difficult to get out, right? And I think being entrepreneurs, we need to protect our reputation. We need to protect our ego. We need to protect. There's so many things that we put, like so many gates, we literally put in front of us. And we just refuse to open these gates. We refuse to get help. We refuse to acknowledge that we ourselves are in depression or we ourselves are going through really dark moments. And just like the whole COVID-19, right? It has no mercy. It doesn't care about what race, what age, what gender, where you are in the whole world. It just wipes everybody out. Yeah. And I think that was, that mental health, like you say, is something that has been a very serious issue, but nobody is really dealing with it or talking about it or even admitting it, right? So this is where we look at the employees. They are all going through a very tough time mentally as well, because some have lost their jobs. And some, have got pay cuts. Some haven't even gotten paid, and that is quite a significant burden on these employees, especially when they are a single income earner. Yeah. But the same thing applies to entrepreneurs. You've got your bills to pay. You've got salaries to pay. You've got so many things to pay, and yet there's no income, right? And if I may say this, people expect entrepreneurs to dig deep into their pockets and say, hey, look, when there's no income, no business, right? But this is your business. So it is your duty and your responsibility to sell your house and sell your car and liquidate whatever you have and pump in the money so that we all can get paid and we all can get, to continue paying our bills. So what do you have to say about that?
I think, Jen, to be honest, as entrepreneurs, right? Anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur should always factor in reserve cash. They should always factor in insurance, and they should always factor in the livelihoods of their team in however way they want to manage their cash flow. Because you see, there are a lot of businesses that do not survive. It's because they never had a form of plan B when these things happen. So in order to be a business person, and this is my advice to anyone out there who wants to go into business, is to really factor in the worst case scenarios. Money doesn't fall from the sky. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, these are the times when you realize that cash is king. You're not gonna be able to just go to the bank and get a loan. It just doesn't work like that. So you got to be smart about how you manage finances within your business. So, I mean, I was talking to to a couple of friends who had to close their restaurants. And then I realized that there's one thing in common is they never factor in reserve cash. So that's why they had to liquidate. So what I'm saying is it is your responsibility to look after the business. It is your responsibility to look after your team, no matter how things, when the quicksand, when you get into a quicksand, your responsibility is always towards others. Of course, you need to protect your well-being, but at the end of the day, I think the bigger picture is you have all these things that you have to look after, and it's always an achievement if you're able to navigate through the difficulties. I mean, I hope that answers your question about quicksands, and how we try to get out of it.
Because I think in those kind of circumstances, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm always a believer. Okay, there's no right or wrong, right?
Yeah.
Everybody makes their decisions and takes actions according to their own circumstances, and it's not a one size fits all, right? But the thing about being entrepreneurs and owning businesses, when you get into a quicksand moment, what are the things that we should be doing? And responsibility and accountability, I think, comes with everyone. Some people have gone very far and they've liquidated their assets to keep the business. Some haven't. We can't fault anyone, but I think, like you say, you're right. Basically, running a business, you need to have some reserves and to carry us through. Especially the dark periods, down periods, because you're not going to build a business over 5, 10, 20 years and then decide to give it up because you don't want to dig deep into the pockets, right? So I, but what about the new businesses? What about people who've just started their business, maybe say less than 5 years? What would be your advice or your tips that you'd like to share with them? What should they do? Because businesses who've just started, maybe 3 years or 5 years, they don't have that much of cash reserves, right? So what would you?
Oh, they should. They should. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think of? What should they do?
Yeah. I mean, I think 5 years, they should definitely have cash reserves. I mean, 5 years is quite a long time, but maybe for those who have been around for like 1 or 2 years, where maybe it's it's a little bit more challenging to save up. I suppose like it's really a kind of finance management exercise, and also I think when a situation like the COVID hits you, you really have to think about streamlining your expenses. You really have to think about being more efficient with lesser expenses. So you mentally, you really have to go into that zone. I mean, like if you didn't save up, it's a bit like, when we're teenagers, your parents tell you to put money into the piggy bank. Even if it's 50 cents, even if it's like 1 ringgit, you have a piggy bank and then you just kind of put it inside and then you don't take it out until you really, really need it for whatever reason. So the way I see that is it's similar to young entrepreneurs. I mean, the moment you start business, I mean, of course you want to invest into marketing, you want to throw out big parties and stuff like that. But you just have to remember that, you know, before you throw all your money into all these things, you always have to save. I mean, that's what my parents taught me. Like, save up your money. You really don't need to use 100% of all your capex. You don't need to use 100% of all your, your loans. So always have cash. I mean, I think if anything, this whole experience has actually taught me that, and it's valuable. It's valuable. You can always work something out with the banks, for example, maybe a higher interest account or deposit account. I mean, there are ways of really generating cash, but you need to figure it out because, you need to be creative in these moments, and you need to be proactive in finding out what kind of government grants there are to support you. So it's not a period where you sit in your office and cry. You literally have to go out and, speak to your tax agents, speak to your bankers, speak to everybody, like literally exhaust all your resources to find out how to survive. I mean, that's what being on survival mode is all about. It's not the time to be lazy, frankly. The last couple of months is really not the time to be lazy, even though business is not going on. This is the time where you really need to do all your research and to put it into action. So I would say that we never really had a holiday as opposed to, staying at home the last couple of months.
So in other words, all entrepreneurs have to be extremely resourceful. Yeah, to
Yes.
find all ways, go into different look at all the contexts you've had over the years, and seek whatever help that you can, right? So
Definitely.
So okay, so what do you think? How would you describe the future of F&B business? How would in your opinion, what do you think the future of F&B is here for Malaysia, for example?
I believe that it's going to flourish. I mean, Malaysia, to me, is still one of the best countries in the world for food. I was just talking to a TV production company in Europe just yesterday, and I was promoting Malaysia to them because honestly, I think if anything, we are the best in the world. We have the best foods, we have the best nasi lemak, we have the best. I mean, we're so multicultural that we should be a capital of food. So the way I see things is for the industry here, it will always flourish because we Malaysians, like you and me and everybody who's watching us today, we love our food. We will always eat. We will always appreciate good food. And regardless of how bad this virus comes into place or threatens us, we will still be around. I mean, restaurants will still be around. I mean, this is the time where you need to, or we as restaurateurs, we need to work on quality of food, because if your food is good, people are just going to come back. I mean, it is that simple. I mean, it's not a time where we compromise on quality or we start dishing out, bad food. I mean, it's basically, it's the time to really up our game and to come up with a great menu and to keep people coming back, because as a country, we definitely have a lot to offer. And I mean, for everybody to know, I mean, the future of F&B, it will always flourish. It's not going to be the death of the industry. It will never be. Yeah.
And
you want to still go out to eat.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, we can eat at home, we can cook, we can order it, but it's the experience that we want, right? The experience of moving out and going out to, to have friends and wine and dine and whatever not. That's really something I've been missing. Right. So, what do you think would be your one short advice to all the F&B entrepreneurs out there?
To put it very simply, I would say just don't give up. No matter how difficult the circumstances is right now, I think nobody should ever give up on their businesses or their dreams, because the way I see this whole pandemic, as they call it, it is only a phase, which is why I was always against the mention of the new norm, because I refuse to think that this is going to be a new norm. Things are going to go back to normal. There's no such thing as social distance dining or whatever they call it, because it just doesn't make sense. I mean, to me, this whole pandemic is just a scare. It's a very tough lesson, and probably the toughest lesson that humanity has ever faced in our generation. So I think perseverance is such an important aspect right now, and I think just focus on survival, sustaining and survival, measures right now, because it's just a temporary phase. I mean, I really don't think, Jen, you want to eat alone forever. I don't think you want to be eating takeaways forever, because that's not going to be the case. It's just like in the Chinese restaurant. I mean, dim sum, for example, has always been a communal tradition. And I did an interview the other day, and I was asked, do you think having dim sum is going to be different in a year's time? Which means that everyone's going to take away dim sum and have it at home, but away from their grandparents, for example. And I got so mad with that question, because to me, dim sum has always been around for centuries, and for us to dish out takeaways or deliveries back to your house, you can't even see your grandparents or your grandchildren. That defies the logic of hospitality. That defies the logic of eating or experiencing a great meal together. So I think on behalf of the industry, things are going to go back to normal. So you just need to ride it out, and you just need to survive this period of difficulty. And trust me, if you can survive this, you can survive anything. You can survive pretty much anything. So that's my message, pretty much.
Great. Absolutely great. Right. So thank you so much, Lyn, for spending time with us, and sharing your very inspiring stories, and being so honest and open about your journey. And, this is something that we really like to be able to do, to share more of, the knowledge and experiences of all F&B entrepreneurs out there in our F&B series. And I would love to hear more from you. I think there are some new things coming up the pipeline, I heard, when that's ready. So, we'd like to have you back on the show for us to hear more about your story. So thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Watch out for more shows and more inspiring stories coming from our F&B entrepreneurs, as well as hospitality entrepreneurs as well. So stay tuned, stay safe, and have a great day, and I'll see you again. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jen. Thanks for everyone. Thanks for having me.